Hi guys, I have got the Citrus Twist Christmas Stories kit here and a new Life Crafted album, and what I want to do is put together a base album for my nephew Jack's first Christmas. I just want to make things really simple for my sister by creating a little album that's pretty much pre-made, and all she needs to do is pop some photos in there of his first Christmas and she'll have this really special keepsake. So I started by just laying out a few page protectors. I have put some 3x4 just plain white cards in here as placeholders for photos until December actually arrives. So there's a few cut files in here that I've cut from the Citrus Twist digital shop here. Had to alter them a little bit to fit into the Life Crafted album, but it's a really cute presents one. I trimmed down a 3x8 to fit into this 3x4 card slot, and I've got another journal card in here. I have created a full page shaker pocket here with a sequin mix I made myself, and I stitched this pocket all the way around and then divided it into 4 with my sewing machine. It adds a little bit of texture. Let's see if I can show you here. It adds a little bit of texture, and although it's harder than using a fuse tool, I just like the sort of this more graphic element, I guess. It makes it more handmade looking. Having the 4 divisions in the pocket stops all the sequins just dropping down to the bottom of the page, so even when the album is stored upright, you're still going to get a mix of sequins across your page protector. I have put in some base white card for where I want to do sort of a full page layout. This is one of the page protectors with the 4x6 portrait photo in there, and so I have filled up the little bottom portion again with the same sequin mix and stitched that shut. This is another cut file from the digital shop. I've got a few more page protectors in here, and that's really it. There's lots of room for expanding for this, but I think this will make a nice start for an album. So I'm just gonna sit down with you and create a few base pages.
So I'm going to start with my title page for this album, and I'm starting with my white card base that I already had trimmed out and stuck into the album. I figured that was a useful place to start, and I'm going to layer up some of the die cuts from the Heidi swap pack. I really loved that wood grain Polaroid piece there. I think it would be the perfect place to house my title, so I'm going to use that. And I also love the little reindeer that's in there as well. It's always hard for me to adhere these tiny little pieces down, so I ended up using my sewing machine to stitch the frame down, which adheres it really nicely but also gives me a bit of texture, which is going to stop the page looking super flat. Now, the alphas that are in this Christmas Stories kit are these really pretty candy cane sort of puffy alphas. They're going to be way too big for my title here, so I grabbed out these stamps from Citrus Twist, and I'm going to stamp Jack's first, and then somewhere in here, somewhere in this kit, there must be the word Christmas that I can use to complete my title. A few of them were too big, so this Merry Christmas sticker from Pink Paisley is the perfect size. So I'm just going to fussy cut off the word Christmas. I'm going to keep the piece that says Merry because I'm sure I'll be able to use that elsewhere, and then just tidy up the edges so that it looks like it was meant to be a die cut Christmas, and I'm going to use that to complete my title. So the reindeer and the word Christmas are just kind of stacked together on the bottom, so just create a little cluster down here. I'm tucking the word Christmas in and around the antlers just because I want it to fit in there. It's going to stick off the edge of the page just a little bit, and I'll be able to trim that down, but then I can stamp my other 2 words in here. So I just want to make sure that I'm getting this straight. And then it occurs to me that I actually need to be able to fit 2 rows of stamping in here, so I'm just going to trim off the antlers a little bit so that I can tuck that Christmas down as far as I can so that I can get 2 rows of stamping. I'm just going to stamp in some black ink so that it stands out nicely, and there's lots of black in the kit, so it will all tie in together. And that's my title page, my title anyway, Jack's First Christmas. I do just need to shuffle things now that I've done my stamping. The sticker comes up totally fine, it wasn't down for that long, and then I can trim the little pieces that are hanging off the edge of the page. Now I want to add a little bit more to the top of this title page, and I love these ornament stickers from Pink Paisley, so I'm just picking 3 in the same red and green sort of colours. Those are the colours I want to stick with for this album. I don't want to add too much of the teal or pink in here, which would be my usual preference, but luckily this album's for Jack, not me. And I just used my sewing machine again to tie in the stitching, but to give me some threads for those ornaments. It's a really nice texture. You could draw it on if you don't have a sewing machine. You could draw those little threads, but I really love the sewing machine texture. The stitching there just makes it look really pretty. I want to add to the cluster down the bottom here, so I'm going through the die cut pack again. I'm just going to pick out a couple more pieces. There's a little stamp and a little tiny word, and I'm just going to glue those onto the bottom of my cluster. And then add just a few touches of enamel dots, and again in the red and the green, just to tie everything together. Now on the back of this page, I'm going to have just a 3x4 photo spot in there, and I really love this Ho 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 paper. It's super bright and red and cherry and kind of kiddish, I think. So I'm going to trim that down to be the same size as my page protectors. And then the only trick with prepping an album like this is I don't actually have a photo to stick in here, so I'm going to use placeholders. I'm going to use these cards as placeholders, and I really want to use some of these photo corners, but I actually have to turn these die cuts into real photo corners because I need to be able to tuck the card in here for now until I actually have a 3x4 photo to put in there. So here's what you do if you're going to be prepping an album like me and you don't have an actual photo to stick down. Grab some double-sided tape and run it on along some scrap paper. Trim the scrap paper down so that it's the same size as your double-sided tape, and then fold the 2 sides over at a right angle. Then trim off the excess and peel back the double-sided tape you see here, and you can stick your photo corners down. When they're narrow photo corners like this, I just need to trim a little V out of the inside of my piece, and then I can stick the photo corner down on top, and you have a little actual photo corner that you can slip a photo or a card into. Now I did all 4 of those photo corners, and then I ran my background piece around the sewing machine as well, again just to tie it all together and to add a bit of texture. And I have slipped my 3x4 card in here so that I can just place everything nicely, but you can see it comes out as it needs to. For now it's just going to sit in there as a placeholder. And I want to add a little bit of embellishment to the page, and I try really hard to make some of these bigger pieces work. I really liked it together, but the reality is that I don't know what this photo is going to be, so I need to be able to keep it a little bit more generic until I have the actual photo, and I can always add more later, but for now I'm just going to stick 3 little gold stars on there and call that one done. Put those pages back to back and slip them into the page protector. And the next page in here I have my cut file, and then I had a couple of the 3x4 cards from the kit. I've already slipped them into the page protector, but I'm just going to add a few stickers on top. The brilliant thing with adding the stickers on top of the page protectors is I can always move them or swap them or change them as I need be. I'm adding 3 little enamel dots onto this Christmas list, but again they're on the outside so that when we do the actual list I can put the enamel dots in the right place. Now I've got another full page protector here, so I'm going to create 2 more pages in here, and like I've already got the white card base, I don't want to waste that, so I'm going to create a filler page. The album, we don't know how many photos there's going to be. I suspect there's going to be a lot. My sister doesn't think there's going to be that many, so I've got some filler pages in here as well as the actual photo bases. Now I love these little tags, and I think the Swede gingerbread man saying hip hip hooray is totally perfect, so I'm going to use him as the main piece on this filler page. I just trimmed him out of the paper, and I punched an actual hole through the top so that I could thread some ribbon from my stash through, and I'm just attaching that with a tiny attacher before I trim the ends down into a little V. Love how that looks. I love adding it's gonna sound strange, but like actual things to pattern paper like this. It just makes it look more real. So adding the ribbon, I've added some stitching. It just makes it look like a real tag rather than a piece cut out from a pattern paper. Now I'm gonna just create, it's not even a cluster, I'm gonna fill up this page with little embellishments here. I want to keep them sort of kid friendly, so I've got a gingerbread house and a little reindeer, and I want to try and stick to my red and green theme too without adding too many other colors. So I'm just pulling off little pieces, candy canes and all sorts of lollies from all of these sticker sheets, mixing all of the different collections together. When you kind of stick to a color theme like the red and green, you really can mix all of the different ones. It doesn't really matter. I love how this looks, and then I'm going to add a few tiny little words as well from that same sticker sheet from Pink Paisley here. Just try to keep everything sort of balanced color wise and theme wise, and just so that the whole thing is balanced from top to bottom. I am leaving a little bit of a gap on both the left and the right hand side, so all of my pieces are really centered, just so that it fits flat-ish into the page protector. I don't want the whole thing to be too bulky. I do have a little bit of foam in the puffy stickers there, so I just want it to be able to fit in nice and flat. There are my 3 little word stickers, and that is that page done. And now I need a photo page to back it. So I'm going to do something similar to the page that I've already created. I'm just using a basic template. I've trimmed down a pattern paper to the size of my page protector, and I want to add this die cut piece here, Season's Greetings. I think that works nicely because it is pretty generic, but instead of photo corners this time, I'm gonna add a mount on the back of my pattern paper there so that my photo will stand out on top of it. So I just trimmed down a darker piece of pattern paper and then ran that through my sewing machine again around the edges to add the same texture that I've used throughout the rest of the album. And the only thing I'm doing to this die cut piece is I'm just going to mount it on a little bit of foam just so it gives a little bit of a textural difference. It's going to be just a tiny bit higher than the rest, and when I have an actual photo to go into the album, I can just glue that directly down onto the darker piece of paper and it will stand out nicely. You can add any other little extra embellishments at that time. Just using a bit of craft foam and my tape runner, and that's those 2 pages all done. I can put them back to back and stick them into the page protectors, and they are ready for December. The next page again is a sequin shaker, and I've just put again a 4x6 card in there for a placeholder, and then I have another full page cut file that I've put into a page protector, and I just want to decorate a little bit, so I've added a couple of stickers and some enamel dots. Now I've got another 3x4 page protector in here next, and I want to make just a couple of filler cards that I can use here and anywhere else that I need to in the album. So I've trimmed down some of the scraps that I have left over to 3x4 pieces, and I'm just going to really simply embellish a couple of those. Some of the smaller scraps weren't quite 3x4, so I just trimmed them down so that they're relatively the same ratio as the 3x4. They just get gradually smaller, and then 2 of those I'm going to trim out a banner shape. So you can see I'm going to stack 2 of these banner shapes on top of each other. The first one I ran through the sewing machine again to add that stitching. I've glued it to the second one, and then the second one I'm going to glue onto my 3x4 card with a little bit of foam to add some dimension. Now to really simply embellish this banner, I'm going to add just a couple of stickers. I love these little reindeer stickers, a tiny word, and then just a couple of enamel dots. Great thing with using a kit like this is that you're going to end up with the same elements throughout the album, so everything is going to look totally cohesive. Now for these other 2 3x4 cards, I'm going to use some of these little pieces from that same cut apart sheet. I ended up trimming out the whole sheet so that I could really easily add them to the album. And I picked out a couple of these word banners here, and again I'm going to do the same thing that I did to that tag. I'm going to make them a bit more real. So I've got my hole punch, and I'm just going to punch out the printed holes on those banners and then add a little eyelet onto each of them. Not actually attaching the eyelet to anything, I'm just attaching it to the paper piece, but it just helps that look like it's a real embellishment rather than a cut apart. Now I'm just going to adhere these little banners onto the 3x4 cards, one at the top, one at the bottom, and I've run out of craft foam, so I'm going to use some foam squares, despite the fact that these foam squares have totally lost all of their stick. So I'm going to end up having to stick them down with a little bit of tape runner anyway, but I don't care. I don't want to waste these little foam squares, so the tape runner works perfectly well. And then to tie everything in together again, I'm going to add a few more enamel dots like I have to just about everything else, just to keep the whole thing coordinated. And it means that these 3x4 cards can go wherever they need to in the album. I can swap them in and out of the page protectors as needed, and the whole thing will be totally cohesive.
So I think I'm finished for now. I've still got a ton of the kit left, but I think it's probably best, now that I've got these base pages done, to save the rest until we have some photos to put in this album. So I'm just going to quickly walk you through what I've done. I've made a few little changes since I recorded the process. The deer that I had on the title card here, it sort of looked mismatched because there wasn't really anything in the same style throughout the album. So I swapped him out and I added a satin ribbon with a little bow and just changed that to the little gingerbread men, which I think is, you know, a little bit more child appropriate. I also changed out Christmas for December, and I used the thickers from the kit for that, sort of candy cane-ish. Again, a little bit more kiddish, but I can't guarantee that this album is just going to be from Christmas. There's going to be all sorts of December stuff in here, so I think December works better for this album. So you saw me put this page together, and this was just a cut file from the digital shop. And then I switched out a few of the little printables. So I made a few of these 3x4 cards and I swapped the printable you'll see later on for this one here. So I'm gonna have a little made card up here, and then I've got my photo. These tabs were part of that Heidi swap pack, and I've just glued them back to back on the page protector. Once I get the photos and put them in, I'll probably end up stitching this on just to make it a little bit more secure, but for now it's just sitting there as is. This is that journal card from the kit, and I did add 3 little enamel dots on top of the page protectors just because I don't know what this photo is going to be, so this way we can always peel the little dots up and move them to a more appropriate spot if needed. I did trim out a couple of sort of full page spread pattern papers to create some layouts later on in December once I actually have some photos. I don't know what those photos will be of. I'm imagining that this might be a photo of Jack with his first Christmas tree, but I did like the difference between having some of the page protectors and then having these full page spreads, and it's super easy. These pieces are just 5 inches by 8 1/4 high, and I just used the page protectors to put the hole punches in the right place. Probably I'll end up leaving the back sides just the plain pattern paper because I really like how that looks with the 3x4 cards, and then you'll open up the page and there will be the layout inside, and the same goes on this side because I've got my sequiny shaker, so this page's the spread as a whole is already pretty busy. Now you saw me put this really easy page together. It's just pattern paper with a little bit of stitched pattern paper on top just to create a mount for the photo. I have just lightly glued a 3x4 card onto the front of the pocket to remind me that that's where a photo is supposed to go. And then I did add a little bit of foam behind the sentiment here just to give a little bit of dimension. The back page of this is a little bit more fun. It's got a sort of column. I created a column really rather than a page of little embellishments. I love that they're sort of candy kid kind of themed. I think it's appropriate for this sort of album. And then on this side we'll have a full 4x6 photo with the little shaker pocket down the bottom. The same for this side here, a full page photo with the little shaker pocket. I love how you can see some of the elements from the previous page through there. And again, another see-through element on this side, which is that digital cut file from the Citrus Twist store. And I just added a couple of stickers and some enamel dots to add a little bit of color and interest on both sides. Easy when you're using squares and circles to make sure that you're covering up both sides. This is my next 3x4 pocket with the handmade card in the front and one of the, I think this was a cut down 3x8 card in the back. I did swap out the sticker I originally had. It was one of those square ones and it sort of covered up Santa's arms. So I've added a couple of the smaller sentiments and again they're on the outside of the page protector so I can swap them out if need be depending on what the photo is. And I did pop in another one of these full page, I guess they're just bases for now. I love adding the extra pattern paper, the extra colour, but also it gives me a spot to do a bigger layout, probably from Christmas Day later in the month. And same for this, I probably will end up leaving this blank, or this might be a nice spot to add maybe an envelope with journaling. And then I've repeated the same technique I did on those first two pages, creating the little photo corners so that I can slip my photo in and out. This is just sat on some pattern paper and I did fussy cut these little trees out because I didn't have any more green stickers left, and added a little deer on top. And then the last page is just another one with the double pattern paper and a few stickers, and again with the card just stuck on top so that I know where to put my photos. So I think this is a pretty good start to Jack's first Christmas album. Love how it comes out. So easy when you use a kit like this to get a coordinated album, and I feel totally ahead of the game despite the fact that I will be creating 2 albums this December. Thanks for watching guys. Let me know in the comments if you've got any questions. Otherwise I will see you again real soon. Bye!